Right, so hello, welcome back to the channel, and are Luton the brand new entertainers? Because every time I seem to watch Luton, I'm just more and more impressed in the style that they play, and every game that I've seen on television of them, it's been a brilliant watch. And very quickly, before we get into that, if you guys could like and share the video round, it helps out a lot. We're trying to hit 350 subs as soon as possible, and every little helps with that as well. It's also free, but let's get back into it. Luton have really been a surprise package, and in a really good way, because when Luton actually got promoted last year, I, like most other people, feared the absolute worst for them. I thought that the squad isn't big enough, they've not got enough money to bring in the high quality players, and let's be honest, you're really thinking about, could this be the next potential derby? And whilst they are in and about the relegation zone and it's going to be very tight come the end of the year, I don't worry for them as much. I feel for Sheffield United and Burnley, I feel like they're both probably gone. But the last spot, it's between Forest, Everton and Luton. And look, Forest and Everton, they're potentially going to get more point deductions. So, in all honesty, Luton could be fine. They also remind me an awful lot of that Blackpool team that came up into the Premier League. You know, the one with Charlie Adam, Gary Taylor-Fletcher, those guys, and they were brilliant. They were a breath of fresh air, and they only got relegated on the last day of the season after they lost to Manchester United, which there's no shame in that whatsoever. They punched well above their weight, they put on entertaining games, but their problem was they'd get thrashed here and there every so often. But this Luton team, they don't get thrashed. I mean, they did on the opening day of the season against Brighton. They lost 4-1, but that happens. Their newly promoted club, Brighton, are brilliant, but they also beat Brighton recently 4-0, so they've got their revenge. And if you put it on an aggregate score, they win by 1. And some of the results that they've actually pulled off this year. Now, some of these ones that I'll tell you, they've lost them, but it's not actually that bad, because listen to some of these. I mean, they just lost 2-1 to Manchester United at home. They drew 4-4 away at Newcastle. They lost to Chelsea 3-2 at home. They beat Newcastle 1-0 at home. They lost 2-1 to Man City, 4-3 to Arsenal both at home, 1-0 to Man United away. They drew with Liverpool at home 1-1. They lost 1-0 away to Spurs. That is unbelievable. Like, take all of that into consideration. Take all those teams. They are the top 6-7 teams in the entire league, and no one beat them by more than 1 goal. No one. And they were all really close games. They even got a point against Liverpool. That is astounding. A lot of those games are at home as well, and I feel that the Kenilworth, the record doesn't back this up, but the Kenilworth just feels more like a fortress in the way that the bigger teams, they do struggle there. Gary Neville talked about it being like an old FA Cup ground where it's just horrible for a lot of these so-called nicer players, the players who are a lot higher up, a lot more star value. They don't play on pitches like this as often. The pitches in a good position, but at the same time, it's all really condensed. They're getting a new stadium in 2026, that's been approved. It's going from 10,000 to all the way up to 90,000. I mean, their current stadium is half the size of Tynecastle Park and Easter Road, which is just mind-boggling for a Premier League stadium. It's going to double in a few years' time, but let's just hope it doesn't lose that sort of on top of you from the crowd atmosphere. 10 years ago, they were in the Conference League. In the 13-14 season, they were in the 5th tier of English football. Now they're in the top. They also had a double promotion in the way that in the 17-18 season, they were in League 2, got promoted. In the 18-19 season in League 1, they again got promoted. So that means in the 19-20 season, they were in the Championship, which, again, that's mind-boggling. That's only about 7 years or so from when they were in the Championship. 6 years to go from the Conference League to the Championship, and 10 years to go from that all the way to the Premier League. It is wonderful, and that's a proper team with a proper story. Even last year, their run to get promoted was great, because in the second half of the season, they were no lower than about 7th here or there. Now, On the 18th of February, they lost 1-0 to Burnley, who ran away with the league last year. Then, after that, it was 14 games unbeaten, winning 8 and drawing 6 for your final 14 games. Now, in the playoffs, they had Sunderland, lost the first leg, 2-1, but then came back and won overall to win 3-2, go to Wembley, where they face Coventry, another fairy tale story if they got promoted, and it was 1-1, goes to penalties. Luton wins 6-5 on penalties. Is this the smallest team we've ever seen in the Premier League? Well, it would probably have to be between Luton, Blackpool, probably Bournemouth. I know they're a bit more established now, but when they came up, it was very much, they're a small club. You also have to look at the likes of Huddersfield. Brighton nearly went out of business, now they're regulars. It's funny how this all works. Now, I'm calling them the great entertainers because that is what Newcastle were called. They were the entertainers, and they had the likes of Ginola, they had the likes of Albert, they had the likes of Beardsley, Ferdinand, and it was all marshalled by Kevin Keegan. They were a lot of people's second favourite side because of the attractive football that they played. And Luton, they play great football. What they do though is they just put everyone forward and they really go for it, which it does overwhelm teams. Now the problem with that is it leaves them susceptible to a counter-attack at the end of the day, and a lot of teams can go charge them. But as I said, it seems to be working because they've got Kaminsky in goals, and Kaminsky has been superb and probably Luton's best or second best player. Now, Robert Edwards has really got them playing well, but the person who he's got playing the best, in my opinion, is Ross Barkley. And I mean, he is so good. Maybe he's not got the legs to run on any more play in that attacking midfield position, but what he does is he sits in that midfield, he says, give me the ball, he relieves pressure, he takes on players, he gets past them, and they've just got someone who is so in control of the football. It reminds me a lot when Christian Eriksen went to Brentford, and he was magnificent in that sort of deeper lying playmaking role. That's where Barkley is now at his best. Now, I think he deserves to be in the England team, and if you're like, well, who are you getting rid of from the England team, because a lot of people think that the England team's so strong, I'm getting rid of the likes of Jordan Henderson and Calvin Phillips, and I would replace them with Kobe Mainoo. Yes, I know he's young, but get him in the squad now, and then Ross Barkley as well, because who else would you replace those two with? As I said earlier in the video, it all depends on the points deduction that Nottingham Forest and Everton look like they are going to be getting. But Luton, it's going to be tight at the end of the year whether they stay up or go down. But I already know that they're not going to go down without a fight, and they're really going to perform to a high level. Like Blackpool, on the final day, gave it the roll, lost 4-2 to Man United, no shame in that. But Luton, they're a breath of fresh air for the Premier League. Now, their problem comes from the fact that it's against the lower teams. Maybe they're just not as up for it, maybe they're more up for the so-called bigger games, but losing to Sheffield United at home, that's not good enough, and those are the results that are really going to swing and see if Luton stay up or go down. It won't be the bigger ones, even though they've been impressive in those games. Let me know what you guys think about Luton as well. Are they the great entertainers that I'm proclaiming them to be, or are they just a kind of good entertaining team that might go down at the end of the year? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading them. And if you're new around here, like, share, subscribe. It helps the channel out immensely. As I said, we're trying to hit 350 subs as soon as possible, so any little helps with that. But thank you so much for watching, and yeah, cheers.